Hey, Dr. Twelborn, it's Barbara Grant. I'm going to take my keys off of my neck. I don't need them at the office. Okay, I've really been thinking about the boss-employee relationship that I've had with owners of the many agencies that I've worked for. And at the first agency, as a new clinician coming out of school, the boss was not that involved with, even though he considered it supervision, he really wasn't that concerned with my clients. He just wanted to know, are you seeing them? And he was looking at the bottom line, the billable hours. And even though my billable hours were quality hours, he had given so many clients to me that I couldn't use up all of the units during their authorization period, and he would get very upset and threaten to dock his employees, his clinicians' salaries, if they didn't utilize all of the units that Medicaid allowed for the authorization period. And he was saying that we were taking money out of the agency when we didn't use all of the units that were available. He wasn't that good of a supervisor at all. He wasn't a supervisor at all. And then he hired Dr. Alexander, who was an awesome supervisor. I ended up choosing her for my licensure, even though she had left the agency and I was still there. The qualities that I really liked about Dr. Alexander were her personal interest in my clients. She really cared that they're making progress, and she reminded me many times that in this profession we were working to work ourselves out of a job, that our job was to be able to get our clients behavior adjusted enough to where we can cut them loose and give them the tools that they needed to be successful in their behavior management, as well as the parents. This was very important to me. Even though I didn't want to lose my clients, I did want them to learn. I wanted them to achieve. And she was real interested in the resources that I was bringing to the table when I'd go in with her for supervision. She was my first real clinical supervisor, and I've had many after her. But she would be engaged in what resources I was using. She would read my notes thoroughly and loved my notes. She could tell where my clients were going from week to week to week, because I tend to write a lot. And she could tell exactly what we were doing, what their progress was. It was measurable, and the positive or negative responses to treatment. I was always very detailed, and I tend to, when I'm supervising my supervisees now, is I think I really want them to measure up to my standards, and I have to take a step back and realize where they're coming from, because most of them are coming not from a clinical background at all. They don't know theories, they don't know any of the clinical expectations. And so I'm really having to do a lot of hand-holding and to put myself in check as far as they go. But Dr. Alexander set the standards that I wanted to be like her. And then I left that agency, and it took me a little while to find another agency, but I was several years without, even though I had started on my licensure supervision. I ended up with 3 years of surgery, so closely after that, with breast cancer and 4 knee replacements and 8 knee surgeries and all of that for 3 years. So I was out of the workforce in the clinical aspect for that 3-year period after I left that agency where Dr. Alexander was my supervisor. And then I started working at another wonderful agency. However, my supervisors there were not what I expected as far as being groomed by Dr. Alexander. She spoiled me to her high expectations, and my supervisors after that didn't have those high expectations. They were helpful. I can't say they didn't do anything, but they weren't very nurturing. I guess because maybe they had more confidence in me. Maybe they were more nurturing with other clinicians that they were supervising. I don't know, because I wasn't in there for their supervision. But you know, they weren't that interested in what resources I was using, or they just wanted to know any problems, it's very, how do I say it? I'm not looking for hands-on exactly, but they weren't that engaged in what the clients really needed. At least I didn't think so. I mean, they were all okay. They were nice. I still have relationships with several of them. Being in this field, you run into them at different workshops and everything. So I always keep that. And I feel that Dr. Alexander valued me coming from a teacher background as a positive strength, although it can be like a two-edged sword with me, because I get so engaged and I so want my clients to do better that in the past I had actually gone beyond my scope of therapy as a clinician, and bringing other things in, like helping them with homework, taking them to museums, exposing them to many of the things that they never get to see: art, concert, live theater. And Medicaid came in and said, no, that's not community support. You have to use resources to teach and educate based on that. So that really changed up my whole mindset of what I had to do with my clients, who were all children under the age of 18. Because no agency that I had worked at took any clients over the age of 18. They were all minors until I got my license, and then agencies where I was working were catering to all age groups. Didn't matter. I don't really look at myself as an administrative supervisor. I guess in reality terms, maybe I am. I hadn't really thought about that. I just look at myself as an educator who wants my supervisees to, I don't think they can measure up to where I am, because I've had so many more experiences than they have, but I have high expectations of their progress with their clients, and I feel like they are coming around, because at first some of them looked at me as being hard on them, and it took a little while for me to get them to come around to seeing this is what's expected of a supervisor to them, my supervisees. And once they got that, and I actually showed it to them in my new course book that you have prescribed for us to use for this class, and I've highlighted many of the things that is expected of the supervisor, and they kind of got to realize that maybe I'm not being as hard on them as they originally thought I was. And they actually started doing and producing at a higher level, as demonstrated by their notes, because I look at their notes, maybe not every week, but I've checked them every so often. I will send them an email and ask them to print their notes out so that we can go over them. And they weren't that crazy about that at first. They thought I was kind of looking over their shoulder. I don't think they're going to be too happy with me when I suggest that I come along and observe them in a session with one or two of their clients at some point in time. I haven't gotten to that point yet where I tell them, but it is something that I want to do as an administrative, I guess you'd call me an administrative supervisor, even though without the pay of a clinical director. That's kind of the role that I play at this agency where I'm working. I'm kind of in the clinical director mode with an office and resources and expectations, although I don't get clinical director pay, which I'm hoping that'll come eventually. My pay comes from only seeing my clients and providing supervision for my supervisees. I don't know what else to tell you. That I guess I can give you some more on the traits of supervisors that I've had in the past. And very cut and dry, very impersonal, not very interested in how the clients are progressing, more interested in utilizing the times, as I've said before, for the boss of the first agency where I was. I want my supervisees to see me as a positive resource for them, and I want them to be happy in their job. I don't want it to just be a paycheck at the end of the month. I want them to see this as an opportunity to help a child grow and develop and thrive, because the kids we work with are so needy, both parentally, emotionally, socially, and they're just inept and need a lot of guidance. Although as my supervisees say, some of them have some very difficult children who don't want help, who think they're okay. And it's developing the strength in those that I supervise to get them to see and realize they can be a positive in these children's lives. And it's not just a job to fill in a space and to get a paycheck to supplement another job they may have, although it is kind of nice in that field, in that way. Well, I guess my 15 minutes are up, Doc, and I hope I covered everything. Oh, I am having some trouble with my feedback because I haven't actively thought of it as feedback. And when I've supervised this week and last week, I really tried to give some feedback and have asked my supervisees for feedback from them, and it hasn't really gotten solidified yet. So that aspect is definitely a work in progress. Thanks, Doc. See you Tuesday.